Welcome back, everybody, to another module of the Freedom Ticket. Right now, we're going to talk about sourcing products. Where can you get ideas? Where can you find products to actually sell on Amazon? Maybe you've already got an idea of something that you've always wanted to do. That could be great if the demand is there and it makes sense for you to do that. Or what if you're just trying to come up with ideas, you're not sure what you're going to sell. Maybe you have an idea like, I think I want to sell some pet stuff, or I want to sell some automotive stuff, or I want to sell some beauty stuff, but you're just not quite sure. How do you actually go about brainstorming and finding product ideas? Now, one of the ways that some people do it is they just walk around big stores. Like they go to, some of these bed and bath stores, or they go to Target or the Walmart or a local store and just walk up and down the aisles and get ideas and see things and scan them in. Like, oh, I wonder if this is sold on Amazon. I wonder if something like this is sold on Amazon. I've gotten ideas that way for products, and that can be one quick and easy way to do it. Another one is what customers are looking for on Amazon. Customer behavior based on what they're putting in like Reddit groups or in social media groups, or what you're seeing on TikTok. Those kinds of things can be another place that you can actually get ideas. Another one are from the reports that you get from Amazon. Once you start selling on Amazon, you'll get advertising reports, like your sponsored brand ads reports. And you can look through there, and I actually found ideas based on what people are searching for. I was selling a griddle to actually make pancakes and waffles and stuff, and I noticed that people were also searching for something to make tortillas. And so I actually ended up producing, I did the research on it and looked like, well, a tortilla press actually could do well. I launched a tortilla press under that brand. I got the idea strictly from my sponsored ads. Another one is from product reviews. People that are writing not just on Amazon, but product reviews on other sites, on Walmart or on Google. Those kind of places, people will often say something, this is a great product, but I wish it would do this and this, or I wish there was something that did this. Those can be great places to get product ideas. Another one are other sellers' storefronts. So if you go onto Amazon and you look at, remember we talked about in one of the previous models where you can, when you're brand registered, you can have a storefront. You can actually go onto those storefronts and see what they're selling. Maybe they're selling, if they're in the pet space, what are other pet people selling in their line? And you can get ideas that way. You can also get ideas from sites like Etsy. You can go and, what people are making handmade, and maybe they're making them one-off, but you see that something's really doing well, that someone's having to sit there and sew or carve or hand create. And you're like, what if we mass produce this? And so you can even go sometimes to these Etsy people and say, hey, we'll work in partnership with you. Maybe you don't have the money or the skill or the desire to actually do these at mass, but you got a good product here. You kind of proved it on Etsy. Let me take this to Amazon for you. You keep selling on Etsy handmade, and we'll do the mass version. That's another great way. That a lot of good products have come out of things by that. You can get ideas from crowdsourcing sites. The crowdsourcing sites are where people like Indiegogo or Kickstarter. Those are sites where people raise money to actually do a product. So they come up with a product idea. Kickstarter is the big one. And they will post information about the product on Kickstarter. And they'll say, we're raising $50,000 to make this new scale that you can weigh yourself on. And it gives you all these biometrics or something. And then people pay for it in advance. And you're basically kind of like, in a way, investing in the product, but you get a special discount. But sometimes there can be really good ideas there. You can also use that for yourself if you need to raise money. It's a little bit difficult. It's a whole business model around that. You can't just put something up on there and expect to actually make sales. There's a whole way of ranking and algorithms, and it can get pretty complicated. And you pretty much need an audience to do that, but you can get ideas. But don't think that you can just easily go and raise your own money there. It's quite a bit of work. Another place that's great are patents. Patents a lot of times expire. And after a certain amount of time, depending on the category, they'll expire. And you can go in and you can search the patent databases of something that was from 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, or maybe it's even a few years ago, and they just never paid the final fees, and so they just lost the patent. But you can find really cool ideas in some of the patent databases just by searching different patents, or going to Google and searching Google patents and seeing looking for the expired ones and getting ideas out of there. That could be another great place. A place that a lot of people use on Amazon is Alibaba. Alibaba is a company out of China, and Alibaba.com is probably the #1 sourcing sites in the world. They primarily focus on Chinese sellers, but they also have manufacturers all over the world. So what happens is companies pay to be on Alibaba, and they will show that this factory in this province, this is what they make. And they maybe have some pictures and some samples and some estimated prices. So sometimes you can scroll through Alibaba and you can find product ideas. That's also where a lot of people go to actually source products. So once they know what they want, they will go to Alibaba and say, who can make this? That's a common place to go. There's others like Global Sources. There's tons of them, but Alibaba is probably the leader in that space. There's also like YiWuGo. It's spelled YIWUGO. YiWuGo is a website for a marketplace in China. There's a marketplace in the town of Yiwu, which is open pretty much 364 days a year. I think it closes on the Chinese New Year. That's the only day it closes, but it's like 7 buildings, like 4 or 5 floors on each building, and they're permanent little stalls. And you can actually go to this marketplace, and a lot of people do, especially from South Africa and African countries and South American countries. They will actually go there and actually do sourcing, but they've taken a bunch of these booths and put these products online. Most of them are small little handheld products, not a lot of big kind of stuff, but you can go to YiWuGo and you can search around and get some ideas of things there. One of the best places to go are like trade shows. Trade shows, you can go to China, the trade shows like the Canton Fair you may have heard of. It happens twice a year in April and October in China. That show has multiple huge, massive halls. It can take you 3 days just to walk up and down every single aisle, and they break it into 3 different parts, 3 different shows over about a 3-week period based on categories. And that show can be good for getting ideas and for meeting factory owners. But a lot of times at those shows, the best products are not what's on display at the booth. It's what they have under the counter. So if you end up going to one of those shows, you always want to say, hey, I see what you got here, but what do you have sitting under the counter that you don't want to show anybody? What's the newest, hottest thing? Or is there a way for me to visit your factory? And you go to their factory and you see a lot of other cool stuff. So that can be going to one of those trade shows like a Canton Fair. There are people in the space that lead trips there. So if you're nervous about going to China or want to go with a group, there are people that do mastermind type of groups where they'll take you to China. They will guide you through the fair, and then they do masterminds and educational stuff at night. So if that's something that you want to do, or you can go on your own. There's also shows like in the US, like ASD, that's held twice a year, usually in Las Vegas, that will have a lot of different types of products. You can also go to very specific trade shows. Like if you're doing pet products, there's the Pet Expo. There's one in Las Vegas and one in Orlando. If you're doing beauty products, Cosmoprof is a big one. But you Google a trade show directory, you can find trade show directory websites, and you'll find a lot of websites that show you all the trade shows all throughout the world, some in Europe, some in Asia, some in the US, and by industry. And a lot of times those can be really good places to go and actually get product ideas or make relationships as well, where someone's already done a lot of the work and you can just private label it, make a couple modifications maybe. Facebook groups can be sometimes a place you can find stuff or what people are advertising. TikTok ads is another one where you start seeing something on TikTok and you're like, man, I'm seeing this product over and over. It looks like it's doing pretty well. You can get some ideas. Be careful because that could be jumping on a trend that a lot of other people are doing too. Shopify puts out trend reports. Some of the software tools also sometimes put out trend reports. The thing that you do want to stay away from is if you ever watch a webinar or you ever watch a YouTube video and someone is using a product as an example, like a classic one is the garlic press, or even for Project X, it was coffin shelves. So Bradley came out with a coffin shelf, and then every Tom, Dick, and Harry copied it, and then all of a sudden there's 1,000 of them out there. So you want to stay away from examples they're giving in educational things. And if someone tells you as a bonus for an educational thing, here's the top 100 best-selling items or the things that you should launch right now, or you come across a blog site that says here's the 7 best product opportunities on Amazon, run as fast as you can away from all those. You don't want to do that because everybody else is looking at that and thinking this is what they're going to do. And you go and you do the research and you're like, oh, wow, they're actually right. Based on the helium-10 data and the tools that you'll learn how to use in this course, that looks like a good opportunity. But by the time you launch, there's about 100 other people doing the exact same thing as you, and you're all just racing to the bottom, and most of you fail. So stay away from those kind of things. Another great place is Amazon in the last several years has opened up some of their data. It used to be you had to guess, and then along came Helium-10 and tools like that would actually let you analyze what's selling and what's working. And then Amazon opened up some of their own internal data like brand analytics and product opportunity explorer. So a lot of times once you learn how to download and read those reports, you can oftentimes find opportunities and ideas for products that may complement what you're already doing. The Helium-10 also has some great tools like the black box tool. The black box tool, and Bradley will be showing you how to use that in a later module, but that tool is really, really cool for actually pinpointing and narrowing down product ideas roughly about 200.
Anh chị đang bán hàng trên Amazon. Skyrock cung cấp các dịch vụ dành cho các nhà bán hàng trên Amazon với mức giá cực kỳ ưu đãi như đăng ký brand với USPTO, từ Helium-10, từ Trịnh Scout, Logistics và Warehouse. Xem hình thông tin chi tiết dưới phần mô tả nhé.
At a time or so. So you can pick a category, you can pick a price range, you can pick a whole bunch of other factors. There's a ton of little filters that you can do, and it'll spit out some ideas that you could look further into and see if they make sense. So that's a pretty cool little tool as well that uses all the Amazon data, hundreds of millions of products on Amazon. Another place what you can do is you can develop your own product. If you've got an idea for your own product, like I've had this idea, I think it'll work. You use tools like X-ray and Magnet and the different tools from Helium-10 to verify that, yes, there looks like there could be a demand or there is a demand and an opportunity for me to actually create this product on Amazon. The thing you don't want to do is just, you have a great idea and it's brand new to the world. Nobody's ever heard of it. Because those products can be great, but they take a lot more education and a lot more money and time to educate people like, what is this product? It's so new. How does this work? What do I got to do? I don't understand. But those types of products can be awesome, but just understand those are difficult to launch especially if you're on a budget, because they take a much longer runway and a lot more educational money and advertising money to educate people. What is this? So the best thing is always to find products that already have a demand on Amazon, and there's already keyword demand. There's already people looking for this or something similar to it, and try to weasel your way in that way. Though, if you have an idea though, and you want to develop it, you can do it yourself, but sometimes it can be a little bit daunting, especially if it's your first time. So there's companies like Gemba, Gemba, that will handhold you through the whole process. So for a fee, they will handhold you through, like, okay, the design process, do all the sketches for you. They will then source a factory. They'll help you make the prototypes to test it out. They'll help you with the whole production, all different levels that they will help you with, or you can do some of that stuff on your own. But those types of things take time. One of my first FBA products back in 2015 for an electronics brand that I had was an Apple Watch charging dock. I started working on that in May, and it finally got launched in December. So it took some time. I went through the whole prototyping stage. I worked with my factory to make molds. The molds cost like $30,000, so it was pretty expensive to just make the little molds that wouldn't, make the machine, make the little parts and stuff. We went through a whole testing process, but I was able to do really well with it because it's a totally unique product that nobody else had. I wasn't just finding something that a factory had already been making and just changing it to my name. So it was very unique. But just understand that process can take a while, and it can be cool, and it can be great, but it is a different animal. So companies like Gemba can really help you in that process. And there's other ones, but I know those guys, and they do a good job. Another thing you want to do is anything that's in the top list on Amazon, the top 100 bestsellers or the top 100 in a category. Typically, those items, there are some exceptions to this rule, but typically those items are going to be, everybody else is looking at them, and they're going to be competing on those too. They see something that's hot, everybody jumps on the bandwagon. So you typically want to try to avoid those if at all possible. The other thing you want to also avoid are done-for-you services. So there's a lot of people out there that will say, well, if you got $50,000, we'll handle everything for you. We'll source the products, we'll sell them. You're basically just an investor, and we'll give you a cut or royalties. Most of those are scams. There might be a couple legitimate ones out there, but the vast majority are scams, and they're not going to work. Stay away from that stuff. It's for the 95% of them are ripoffs, and you're never going to see a dime. So just Google, lawsuits done for you services Amazon. You'll see how many people the FTC has sued and gone after for these. So stay away from any kind of thing like that where someone says they'll do it for you and you just sit back and make the profits. So those are some ideas on ways that you can actually source products. But once you've sourced products, you got to decide what category is this product going to go into on Amazon. There's millions and millions of products that are sold on Amazon. There's probably, I don't know what the exact number is, but into the hundreds of millions of actual listings on Amazon. But realistically, only about 2 million or so products are actually really selling. There's about 2 million or so core products that are actually selling. And the rest of them just sit there and maybe sell one a month or periodically. But there's about 2 million true products that are totally are actually selling. So the category is super important that you go into because the category is going to determine how competitive it is. Some categories like pets or supplements can be pretty cutthroat. You can do well, but just understanding going in there, it can be really cutthroat because the advertising costs to get eyeballs onto your listing can be super expensive. There's a lot of people in there. Some of the barriers to entry are low. So any category where the barrier to entry is a little bit lower, typically is a little bit more competitive. Some categories are what's called gated, and those categories mean they're closed off. You got to get special approval to sell in them, like, for example, watches or something like that. Those categories can be lucrative because those categories, not a lot of people are getting approved to sell in there. So you might have opportunities there. But the category that you choose, you got to make sure your product is relevant for that category because Amazon uses something called nodes, N-O-D-E-S. And that's a code that they use for breaking down categories because if someone types in a keyword on Amazon, they don't just want random stuff showing up for that keyword if it doesn't actually match. So if your product is a hairbrush and you're using the word hairbrush, they want to know that, okay, the word hairbrush probably means when someone types in the word hairbrush, they're probably referring to a brush for humans, not a brush for horses. So they want to make sure that if someone types in the word hairbrush, they show results from the category of human brushes, not the category of pets and pet grooming supplies. So Amazon they have humans and tools that have gone through and basically every single word, they categorize it under a certain category. And if that category, if you pick the wrong category to go into when you list your product on Amazon, it can dramatically affect whether people can discover you or not, whether they can find you. So you got to be thinking about those things too when you're choosing your product and you're creating your listing, because it'll dramatically impact your sales. You can use tools like Helium 10. It'll show you the category. You can also see it on Amazon when you're looking at a listing. It'll show you usually there's a top level category like pets, and then there's a subcategory like grooming supplies, and then there's another category maybe underneath that like brushes or something like that. So there's layers of these categories. X-ray will show you some of that, and when you're comparing, you want to see who products are trying to get ideas. You want to see who else is in that same category, and pay attention to the category that the product that you might be interested in selling is in. Sometimes you'll see something listed in multiple categories. Maybe a hairbrush is listed in beauty, and maybe it's also listed in professional supplies or some other category. And you got to decide where are most of the people selling, where most of the money being made, and that's the category that you want to go into. Now, Amazon has what's called gated and ungated categories. Gated categories mean you have to get permission to sell there. It could be a brand that's protecting their brand, like Nike doesn't want just anybody selling Nike shoes. Or it could be where Amazon's like, you need permission to sell beauty products, or you need permission to sell collectible stamps or something, or you need permission to sell certain things. We want to make sure you're legit and not a scammer. So those categories you might have to get approval to be sold in. And so it's called ungating. So you have to get ungated. You can do this yourself by submitting documents on Amazon Seller Central, their administrative platform, or there's also companies that sometimes will help you do this. But be careful, some of these companies are a little sketchy. They might make up some fake documents or do something that's a little on the edge that could get you in trouble. So just be careful if you use one of these ungating companies, because a lot of them are not on the up and up. There's also restricted products. So if you're going to sell something that's hazardous or like flammable, maybe it's like hand sanitizer or something, or even nail polish, those kind of things, they have certain rules around them. They have to go and you have to get approval to have what's called hazmat. So there's special warehouses that Amazon has where these kinds of things can be stored, and that's something that you want to pay attention to as well. If you're going to go in that category, you may have to go through extra hoops. Some things require certain approvals, like if it's a kid's toy, you're going to have certain certifications for it. If it's electronics, you might have to have the Bluetooth certification or Underwriters Laboratory in the US, UL, or CE in Europe certifications. It might need to have FDA approval if it's some sort of a ingestible thing or something that goes on the skin and you're making some sort of claims. You might have to have that. Some products are also just not allowed to be sold on Amazon. Even though they are sold, they're not allowed to be sold, like CBD. So if you type in CBD on Amazon, you're going to get some results because people have figured out how to game the system and actually kind of weasel their way in there. But technically, it's not allowed. So like marijuana, you can't just do something on like marijuana or marijuana, as a keyword or as in the brand name. But people figure out how to sell supplies or accessories for marijuana products, for example. So pretty much if it's not legal in every U.S. state, Amazon won't allow you to sell it. There's also some things like in California. California is probably the most anal state in the United States, and they have a lot of their own consumer rules, and Prop 65 is one of them. And Prop 65, a lot of times your products have to be certified for Prop 65, which is all this environmental and safety stuff and all this extra hoops you have to jump through, and you might have to have that kind of certification to sell the product. A lot of these things you can research, or your factory sometimes will know this, or if you're using a sourcing agent, they'll be able to help you with this. Or a lot of times you can Google, and there's agencies also that help you with compliance that you can probably find in the directory, the Helium 10 supplier directory, that will actually help you. So these are just things you got to be thinking about. Toys are another one, actually. At Christmas time, to be able to sell toys during the holiday season, you have to meet certain criteria. It'd usually be selling and have certain feedback scores and certain things that prior to the holiday season starting in order just to be able to sell toys. So if that's something that you're looking at, keep that in mind too. Pesticides can be another thing that has specific restrictions. And sometimes you might not think of, you're thinking of, when I say pesticides, you're thinking of like bug spray. Well, that is a pesticide, but a lot of times things like wipes, like just the wipes, to clean your hands, depending on the claim that you make in that, if you are saying these wipes are to clean your hands, that's under FDA approval. If you're saying these wipes are to wipe the surface of this table and clean the germs off of this table, that's actually considered a pesticide. And so to be able to sell that product and make that kind of claim or put those keywords in your listing on Amazon, you have to get approved to sell pesticides. And it's not hard to do on Amazon. You got to go through a little vetting process and take like a little course that they have and pass a little test and stuff. It's not super hard, but you just got to be aware that some of these things you have to do. There's terms that will trigger things. So maybe you're fine. You're like, I'm good. I put my wipes that wipe the table up on Amazon, start selling. Everything's going good. Looks like Kevin said I need approval, but I don't. Amazon's letting me sell it anyway. And then what happens? Boom. A week later, your listing is suspended and you have little dog pictures on it saying this product violates our terms. So Amazon has algorithms that go through and periodically check, especially every time you make an update to a listing. They go through and they check everything and check it against claims, or if there's some case that happens in the news where someone's all of a sudden saying the hoverboards are blowing up or something's happening in the news or this particular thing. They'll go through and they'll search their entire database. Does anything make this claim or have these keywords, and they'll suspend your listing, and you'll have to fix it. So that's some of the things you got to be thinking about when you're choosing products. And some of those can be actually good things, because if you're willing to go through those hoops and you have the capability, it's a barrier. It keeps other people out. It's a kind of a gate, because people are like, that's too much hassle. I'll just sell something easier. So there can be good opportunities there, but just understand going in, you may have to do that. When you're choosing your products, it's usually when you're first getting going, choose simpler products. Complicated products with lots of moving parts or electronics can be a little bit more troublesome for a brand new seller. So if you're brand new, I would recommend just starting with something a little bit more simple just to get your feet wet. And then if you are comfortable, then expand into more complicated types of products that have a lot of parts or have a lot of potential other issues that you have to deal with in the manufacturing and customer support side. But start a little bit simpler. One of the biggest keys when you're choosing your products, though, is you have to differentiate. You can't just be a Me Too product. There's so many Me Too products on Amazon. Me Too products is like someone sees that this garlic press is selling, and it's company XYZ, and you're going to make it just a red color instead of a black color, and you're going to put it under your name, YYZ. It's the same product, almost the same pictures, almost everything's the same. Those are Me Too products, and you're not going to succeed on those. You might make a little bit of money for a week or two or maybe a month, but it's going to die a quick death. And those are not what you want to do. You want to differentiate. We're going to go into more detail on differentiation a little bit later, but there's a lot of things you can do to actually differentiate your product. It's crucial. You got to find that little edge, that unique selling proposition, that USP that you can actually sell and list this product on. Any changes you make, though, just make sure that these are going to appeal to your buyers. Sometimes it's good to ask your friends and family, hey, if I change this product, what do you think? Or also there's tools like PICFU, PSCKFU, that will allow you to do polls of Amazon sellers and see what they think. You know, I've done stuff where I took makeup mirrors. I was thinking about doing a series of makeup mirrors, little portable makeup mirrors for women, and I'm not a user of that product. So what
Anh chị đang bán hàng trên Amazon. Skyrock cung cấp các dịch vụ dành cho các nhà bán hàng trên Amazon với mức giá cực kỳ ưu đãi như đăng ký brand với USPTO, từ theo link thêm, từ cho Discount, logistics và warehouse. Xem hình thông tin chi tiết dưới phần mô tả nhé.
I got 7 different samples. I went to a bar and sat there, and every woman that came through, I was like, excuse me, can I ask you a question? And I had these mirrors laid out on the bar, and I'm like, which of these do you like best and why? And they gave me some feedback and things that I wouldn't have thought of, because they're able to pick it up and hold it. It's not just looking at a picture, but they pick it up and hold it. So you can do those kinds of things. So make sure whatever changes you make are actually going to appeal to your buyer. So PICFU is also available within Helium 10. Just look inside your dashboard into audience, and you can actually see where you can actually use PICFU. You don't have to actually go to their site. Use it right within Helium 10. It's a really cool tool. You can also do things like enhanced to packaging. Packaging can make a huge difference in upgrading the packaging. Bundling is another option where you can put things together, like things that people are buying together, just make them one package together instead of them having to buy each individual item. You know, if it's a candle and, I don't know, matches, put them together as a single item so people don't have to buy individual items. That's another way. Anything that you can do with a secret sauce or unique names. People sometimes, if the product has a cool name, think about cars. You know, it's the CX400 or it's the Nissan Sprint or whatever. If you can get cool names to a product, sometimes that can give you a good competitive advantage too. Material changes, you know, changing the type of materials or the quality of the materials could be things that you can do. Get creative with the product, you know, get creative and try to fix any kind of common customer complaints by reading the reviews of other similar products or your competitors' products and see what people are complaining about and try to fix those problems. You can change the shape or the size. You can sometimes optimize with some sort of unique content. It includes something special and very unique to it. You can do personalization options if you want to, where they can personalize it. You can also do licensing if that's something that you want to do. Sometimes even selling at higher price points can be a differentiator, for example. And you can justify that with your pictures and with the packaging, even though the product might be exactly the same. You can emphasize the origin of the product. Sometimes, like saying it's made in the USA gives you an advantage, or if it's made in Germany, if it's some sort of electrical part, or made in France, if it's some sort of a fufu type of item, can oftentimes give you a differentiating factor. Try to solve specific problems and fill in market gaps. That's something that a lot of people just don't look for. And there's like something that's, you can weasel your way in by doing that. Avoid products that are really big and heavy when you're first starting, or that are just out of your budget. Sometimes people bite off more than they can chew. So I'm going to show you later how to actually figure out what you can afford and what you should be looking at. But sometimes people will get into an opportunity because it's great, but they really can't afford to sustain it or actually to do it if it's successful. So you want to avoid that. Avoid the super hyper competitive markets. Avoid where there's big brands dominant. If you look at the listing, an X-ray shows you the top 20 and 18 of them or Cuisinart, in the kitchen category. That's a big brand. The chances of you weaseling in there and grabbing some market share are pretty slim. So you want to look for areas where there's not a major brand dominating. You want to look for, be aware of the restricted items like we talked about earlier, the hazmat items. Seasonal items can be really good, but seasonal items can be tough for a new seller. So like Christmas or Valentine's, Easter, Mother's Day, those seasonal things, they can be great opportunities, but I would recommend as a new seller, you might launch something that's more evergreen that can be sold year long first, and then come back later if you have some ideas for seasonal stuff and sell the seasonal stuff once you've kind of figured out the system, because you've got to know how to actually ship and game the system on Amazon to maximize your opportunity on seasonality. And that can be a little bit tricky if you're brand new, so I would avoid those in the beginning. Products with a lot of variations to begin with can be something that can be a challenge. So if you don't want to have so many options to begin with. So if try to pick something where there's one or two options and that's it. Maybe you can expand that later, but don't get over like, I'm gonna have 20 different colors of this, because that's just gonna spread yourself too thin while you're launching and spread your money too thin by trying to figure out which one is gonna be the best seller, how many of this one do I need? Things like clothing and shoes, where there's all these different sizes you have to stock. Those can be challenging for a new seller that's just starting out with limited funds and trying to figure out anything. Where the pricing is the same is a market I usually try to stay away from. For example, makeup brushes. You type in the word makeup brush on Amazon, most of the results on page one are going to be like $3.99 to $7 or $8. They're single or a set of two makeup brushes. If I'm selling a makeup brush set, like in a nice little leather case for $30 to $40, it's going to be very difficult for me to be on the first page of the results on Amazon with that case, because it's a $30 price point. Everything else is in that lower price point. So what I like to see is where when you type in a word, like there's some of those games. What's that game where you throw the bean bags, into the little thing? Those type of games where you see some that are $20, some that are $100, some that are $150, some that are $80, but the price is all over the place. That tells me there's a really good opportunity to actually go in on that keyword. So that's something to consider as well. Markets that have really established products that have been selling for a long time, X-ray and helium-10 tools will show you when the person started selling. If most of the top products have been selling for years on Amazon, it says first on Amazon in 2015 or something, and a lot of them are really old like that, it's going to be harder for you to crack that, because Amazon has so much history on those products that it's hard for a new product to come in. So if you can find categories where there's a mix, or a lot of the products are less than a year old or even less than 6 months old, that's better. So try to do that if you can. You can look for opportunities where people are just, they've messed up their listings. They only have one picture, or their packaging is really horrible, but they're doing really well. That could be an opportunity for you to come in and create better packaging and better pictures and take a lot of market share from them. Items that are hard to find locally can be really good. Things that are regional products, sometimes regional hot sauces or regional barbecue sauces can do really well because people can only get it locally. It's not nationally distributed. Those kind of things can do well. Large, expensive items can be an option too, because nobody wants to mess with those. But sometimes going into those larger, more expensive categories, you're not going to sell as many units, but you can make more per unit. Things you're passionate about, or sub niches where people are just really passionate, can be great opportunities. Anything where you can add value added, or you can bundle something, those can be other really good opportunities. And like I said earlier, the differentiation is critical on all of that. So if you're going to do that, make sure you are truly differentiated. Just try to think outside the box and you don't have to be the best, but you can be the best alternative, and you can still do really well on Amazon. I also recommend you focus on e-commerce compatible products. So not all things are suitable for selling e-commerce and shipping. Some things are just better to go on a truck or a pallet or something. So the minimum profit margin I would recommend you look for is 70%. So this is before all your advertising costs and stuff, but a 70% profit margin. That's basically a 4 to 5x your landed costs. So if the factory tells you this is going to cost you $5, I would like to see you sell that for $20 to $25 minimum. Now, when you get into really expensive things, you don't have to have quite that margin. If something's $100 and you're going to sell it for $300, you might be okay. So that's a 3x, but anything sub 100, you need a 4 to 5x minimum markup on it. One of my office supply products is $1.50 and I sell it for 20. So you can see that's 14 times markup, and it's a hugely profitable item. So the bigger that margin, the better you're going to be. Don't condense that. You want to also consider revenue density. How big is the item versus it's basically like revenue per square inch. Just like a retail store has revenue per square foot, you want revenue per square inch of a product. The higher the value per unit size, the better you are. Large items, hard to ship items can be difficult, can cost you a lot in extra storage fees. Make sure that your branding is on point. Price points under $15, or I recommend you stay away from. It's just a mass numbers game. There, it's low margins, and it's just selling massive amounts to make any money. The best price points are between $50 and $100 on Amazon. So if you can find something that can retail for between $50 and $100, those are going to give you the best opportunities and the best margins to work with. But I would not go under $15. When you're creating a product on Amazon, you're going to need a UPC code. Amazon has something called an FN SKU, FNSKU code, which is like their internal UPC code. You don't have to have that. They'll generate one when you create your listing. Those are more for if you're selling, multiple people are selling the same product. So if you're doing arbitrage or you're doing wholesale and everybody's shipping in the same dog bowl, and it's how Amazon tells, did Kevin ship in these 20 dog bowls and then Bradley ship in these other 15 dog bowls? Whose dog bowls, even though they're the same box, who shipped in which ones? So who's responsible if one of these is bad or damaged? That's what they use the FN SKU for. But if you're a solo seller and you're the only one on that product, which most of you should be, a UPC code is fine on your product. You can get UPC codes from GS1. That's the official service. There are companies out there like Speedy Barcodes and others you'll see on the internet that will sell you UPC codes cheaper. Don't use them. They are going to create problems for you on Amazon. Some of those codes have been used before. They're recycled, and when you go to list all your product on Amazon, you may have issues. So go to GS1. It's going to cost you $150 or so. There's an annual licensing fee to do it. You can buy them in bulk and save a little bit of money, but make sure you get a GS1 code because Amazon's database will check that. And you're going to want to put that UPC code on your packaging or on your label. And when you list on Amazon, you want to do that. Now, you can list on Amazon without a UPC code. It's called a GTI exemption. So like handmade items that don't have UPC codes, you can get an exemption when you're listing the product. But I still would do a UPC code for everything, even if you don't stick it on there. If it's handmade and you're not even using it, because it just helps keep everything clean and without any issues. So go to GS1. I think it's gs1.org. I think it is, or gs1.gov, and you can actually get those codes. And there's offices in the UK, there's offices in the US, there's offices around the world, but you want to make sure you have that. So these are some of the things that you need to be thinking about when it comes to product selection and product ideation. Hopefully this has been helpful for you, and we'll see you again here shortly as we continue on showing you how to sell on Amazon.
Anh chị đang bán hàng trên Amazon. Skyrock cung cấp các dịch vụ dành cho các nhà bán hàng trên Amazon với mức giá cực kỳ ưu đãi như đăng ký brand với USPTO, tuần theo LinkedIn, tuần chơi Scout, logistics và warehouse. Xem thêm thông tin chi tiết dưới phần mô tả nhé.